All right, guys. Hey, it's Nicaila. We're getting into day 2 of the Side Hustle Bootcamp. And today we'll be talking all about my favorite subject in life. Well, maybe not in life, but my favorite subject when it comes to side hustling, which is figuring out who your target audience is. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me just pull up my slides, make sure that is full screen. All righty. And then go ahead and share that with y'all. Give me a thumbs up or yes in the chat so I know that you can see my screen. I don't think I actually pressed share. Hold on. Now there it is. So you should be able to see it now, right, you guys? Just give me a thumbs up. Good to go. All right, cool. Thank you, Leslie. You were the first one I saw. So like I said, it's day 2 and we are talking about how to find the right audience for your side hustle, you guys. And we're going to jump right into it. And if you have any questions, like, anything for clarification, feel free to put that in the chat just so I can make sure we are as clear as possible, because I really want you guys to get this. So today we'll talk about, why knowing your target audience matters and how to determine who your ideal client is. Yes, there's a difference there. So we're going to talk about that as well. So how many of you guys know who your target audience is right now for your side hustle? Let me know just with a yes or no in the chat. If you know exactly who is going to be the right customer for your side hustle, and whether that's a service or a physical business, whether it is a podcast, a content that you're trying to produce, let me know. Okay, so we have a lot of yeses. Okay, all right, Jackie, you say no. Wow, I'm surprised, Jackie. All right, but I think you have a new side hustle. But all right, so let's talk a little bit more about this. For my yeses, once we start getting a little granular, I want you to update me on if you got to go back to the drawing board a little bit. So everyone has a target audience. You know that, I know that. And every single business service has a target audience. You simply cannot sell something if nobody wants it. And there's a particular audience that wants your service, your business. So what is a target audience? That is the key question. Sometimes people, you think you have a sense of what it is, but you're actually going broader than you need to. So I really like this definition from Brafton.com. So I included it as a quote, and so you guys can see the attribution, but I really like how this is phrased because it pretty much is as clear and succinct as possible. So a target audience is a group of consumers within a predefined market that has been identified as the best recipients for a particular marketing message. Why I love this is because it's sharing with you exactly what I always try to emphasize, which is it doesn't mean that they're not more consumers of your product or service. It just means that this particular group, this particular market is the best recipient, AKA they're more likely to receive this message, be impacted by this message, and take action. So Jackie, you're broader than you need to be, right? A lot of us are broader than we need to be. So a target audience is the group within this whole target market. So to give you an example, okay, a target audience for me, I might have a predefined target market of people who are interested in entrepreneurial content and business podcasts. But my target ideal client, my target audience are Black women who are interested in entrepreneurial and business content. And then within that, the best recipient for my message, my ideal client, who you're going to get to know a little further as we go along, is Janelle, who is a side hustler and who wants to understand how other side hustlers who are interested in starting a business on the side while they work full time, how they've done it. So that's how deep you have to get. And I know a lot of you get worried about, oh, do I need to target by race or gender and all this other stuff? And we'll clarify that, because it's not necessarily about targeting by one race or gender or anything like that, but it is knowing the pain point of a particular person, because that is so specific, and only certain type of people are going to have that pain point. You following along with me? Give me a yes in the chat if you are, because I get so passionate about this and I try not to go into marketing jargon and gibberish. So let me know if I start doing that. All right. So moving into some more about what is a target audience. So some of you guys might have heard this terminology. I am, trying to break it down as clearly as possible. So I'll also share that a target audience can be business to business, B2B, which is commonly used, just B2B, or business to consumer. So you might have created like a medical instrument and you are wanting to sell that to pharmacies and other medical organizations that would use this, like often drug companies are selling to hospitals, they're selling to doctors. Business to consumer is you're selling directly to that patient, you're selling directly to the person who's going to use it. So most of us are creating business to consumer, B2C businesses, but every now and again, I do come across people who are doing B2B, and I've had B2B entrepreneurs and business owners on the podcast as well. So here's why knowing who your target audience matters. And we're going to, of course, clarify and get granular about ideal client, but here is why knowing your target audience matters. So a lot of you guys said yesterday that you struggle with the marketing piece. There is no marketing without knowing who your target audience is. So in order to create effective marketing campaigns with convincing messaging, and I use the word convincing on purpose, in order to create effective marketing campaigns with convincing messaging, you have to know who you're talking to. And I use convincing because, a lot of times people, they see that as a bad word, but in order for someone to whip out their credit card and pay for something, or even to whip out their AirPods and listen to something you created, you have to convince them. You have to convince them that this is going to be worth their time, worth their money, and they should give their hard-earned dollar or, their valuable, precious time and spend time on your content, or spend time on your business, or spend money on your business. So that's why I use convincing. And you create effective marketing campaigns by knowing who am I talking to. If I know, it's kind of like how people say, people sometimes code switch, right? If I know I'm talking to this person, I'm going to be casual and, I'm going to talk like this. If I'm talking to this person, I might talk a little different, right? It's the same thing with marketing. You adjust what you say, how you say it, based on who you're talking to. So defining your target audience is the first step to marketing your side hustle. How many of you know who you're talking to? So for those of you who said you know who you're talking to, when you create messaging for them, do you imagine them? Do you visualize them like you're talking to that person as you're writing an email, as you're writing a Instagram post? Are you visualizing someone as you do that? Let me know in the comments. And is anyone else realizing that, hey, I might be a little bit broader than I need to be? And that's okay. We're here to learn. All right. So some folks are saying no, some are saying yes. Yes and no. All right. Elaborate, Catherine. So once you know who your target audience is, you can identify your ideal client. I hope I don't lose you guys here. Okay. So remember, going back to that, let me go back to that slide about target audience. So remember that your target audience is a group. It's still a group of consumers within a predefined market, okay? But this group has been identified as the best recipients for a particular marketing message. Now, your ideal client is a fictional character that represents someone in that group, someone in your target audience. So when you know your ideal client, you can start to solve for specific problems. So creating fictional personas, and I'll put up this one that I got from SEM Rush. I forgot to put the quote there, but this is from SEM Rush. So creating a fictional character is a common marketing exercise for if you go to any marketing company, any brand company on earth, they start out thinking about how to market a product or service by creating a buyer persona. And they often create multiple. But when you are a small business starting out, you need to start with that one. You need to understand your core client when you are starting out. So you can call it a buyer persona. You can call it an ideal client. I really like ideal client a little bit better. So all that essentially means is from that group, they're starting to put a face and the name on someone. They're starting to say, this is Shauna. She's this age. She lives here. She went to school here. She now works as this. This is, her bio. This is what she likes to do. These are some of the frustrations she's experiencing, whether that's at work or in life. Depending on the product or service, you will customize this, but this is just an example. So in a second, I'll share with you my ideal client. I sometimes call her my perfect listener because I have a podcast. And so I mapped out Janelle, and I'll tell you how I was able to identify that Janelle is my person. But let me just pause for a second and see what questions have come in. Does this make sense to you guys in terms of how we go from target audience to ideal client? So you can think about it as, let's say you're in an organization, right? And there's a group of you, but then someone identifies and says, hey, Amber, this is Amber. This is what Amber is going through. And these are some of the things that are top of mind for Amber. So now you can start to map out, okay, what does Amber need to know about our product that will help her realize that, hey, this is actually something that can help her. Clarisha says, or Zia, sometimes I imagine myself, which probably isn't great either. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of us start there because most of the time we are coming up with businesses that solve a problem that we have, and that's okay. I want you guys to know that that's okay. What's not okay is when you exist in this blind spot where you don't consider who else might be having this issue. So that's kind of like if you're just driving on the road and you never look into your blind spot, right? That's not going to work. You're not the only one on the road. So that's what happens when you create a service and you only take into account what you think, what you feel, what's going on. So you need to then back up a little and say, okay, what is the audience here? What larger group am I a part of that has this concern and this need? And then start to identify who the ideal client is. What are some of the common threads that you're going to see about people who want this product or service that you're creating? Yarden also says, narrowing it down and identifying pain points and how the product or service helps them. Yes, that's definitely a challenge for a lot. Shalonda, you say, it's challenging for me because my audience is kids and young adults whose parents make purchases. So I'm assuming I market to the parents. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a really good one. And I'd love to know what your product is so I can even comment on that a little bit more. I have someone who in mind when you say that, because I have interviewed a few entrepreneurs who have a product like that. So for example, the founder of Play Pits, which is a natural deodorant for kids, because kids start getting stinky, even as kids. And so of course, they're not usually shopping for themselves, right? So then you have to indeed market for the person who's going to do the shopping. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my ideal client. So I share this, I'm not going to read all this, of course, but I share this so you know just how much I want you to map out who your person is. As you're writing down characteristics, which we'll get to in a second, you need to know where they are, where they live. So Janelle, who is my perfect listener, my ideal client for my podcast, sidehustlepro, she is a 28-year-old Black woman living in Harlem. She's a marketer at American Express by day, budding side hustler by night. Janelle is creating her own line of natural hair products. She's always been fascinated by creating her own products ever since she was little and used to help her grandmother make body washes. And so I go on to share where she graduated from, the fact that she's still trying to find her way, and what she'd love to create, what she really wonders, what she's struggling with. And, she has a common struggle, right? She doesn't have enough money to quit her good job and still live in New York City, but she's really interested in doing this side hustle. And so as I map out Janelle, I start to get a sense of, okay, where's Janelle hanging out on the internet? Who is she following? If I'm going to create content and use hashtags, what kind of hashtags might come up for her as she's scrolling along her day? You know, what kind of content can I create and where can I find her as I create that content? And that's how you have to start thinking. This is going to inform everything from where you sell your products online, or where you eventually, when you're in stores, how you want it to be merchandised, and all of those things start with knowing who your person is. So are you guys following along? Are you getting this? Stinky kids. Yes, Melina. That certainly is and I'm so glad you brought that up, because yes, sometimes your target person, your ideal client, is shopping for someone else, and you absolutely need to talk to the person who's making the decision. The decision maker is who we're talking to at all times. So in order to start doing this for yourself, to start mapping out who your ideal client is, it's always going to start with a question, you guys. And the question might seem broad at first, but we start broad and we get more and more narrow. Don't get discouraged by this, okay? It might feel like your answer is going to be, well, I don't know, Nicaila. That's why I'm here. I don't know. Okay, you can feel like that, but I can't find them for you. Like you got to find your person. Okay, so start with, who is my target audience? Just write down just who you think it is. Guess. It's okay to guess. All right. And then from there, who's my ideal client? So of this group of Black women, who within that do I want to talk to? Of this group of mothers, who do I want to talk to? A lot of times people will come to me and they want to start a motherhood podcast. You know how many different type of moms there are in the world, or birthing people there are in the world. You got to get a little more specific than that, right? It is tough. It is tough. So I see someone's talking about issues in the chat. So what issues are you guys having? What exactly is the issue? So have you tried answering that to start with? Who is my target audience? Who is my ideal client? Let me know where you're beginning, okay? And then let's get more granular together. So when I say write it down, I mean by starting with the age, gender, education, occupation, location, pain points, some of the things they like to do for fun on the weekends, where they like to shop, who they follow online, where they hang out online. Are they a LinkedIn person? Are they a Facebook person? Are they a TikTok person? Who is this person, right? So let me know, do you understand what a target audience and ideal client is? Let me know with a yes or no. And if this is challenging for you, let me know where you're starting. Like, let me know what you know about your target person, and let's narrow it down a little bit from there. I'm trying to see you guys. I feel lonely, but I'm sharing my screen and I can't get back to seeing the group. All right. So, okay. Sherilyn says, I understand who, what they are, but I struggle with finding out more about them. All right. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to an exercise that will help you. Amber, Neek says, yes, but I'm not sure who my target is specifically. Amber says, I have gender, age, and occupation down, but I need to dig into what shows they watch and what they follow on social media. Yes, let's dig into that for sure. Shayla says, definitely help since my side hustle is journalism based, so kind of broad. Yes, definitely broad. Let's hone in on that. So if you think about websites like Blavity, if you're aware of Blavity, BLAVITY.com, or things like Essence, or things, like Fast Company, and websites that have been created to identify some gap that they found in journalism. That's an example of really doing target audience. So for Fast Company, it's like more entrepreneurial, business, tech-based, or TechCrunch, tech-based journalism. What's going on with the top tech companies? That's the kind of news. If you're looking for that news, to go to those kind of websites. So it's identifying those gaps. And then once you've identified the gap, it's thinking, well, who is gravitating to this type of content or product? All right, parents. Okay, Jackie, your target is parents raising Black children. Okay, so yes, definitely broad. So we need to start thinking of, you said I need to narrow more, i.e. age of children or moms versus dads, but I also want to create for Black children. That's awesome that you know that you want to create for Black children, right? So, and by the way, guys, VIP is still open. So we're just giving you a taste of how much I can help you within that. So you can still go to sidehustlepro.co/bootcamp for the VIP Q&A calls. But if you were to start thinking about something like, I want to do something for Black children, think about who these children are and where they are in their development, right? So if, my husband and I, we have a coloring book app, right? Color Noir. And you often find that, number one, you think about who is coloring, who has the skill to color, who has the patience and the concentration. So that narrows the age group, right? And then you think of, well, if it's the app or it's the physical coloring book, who's going to purchase it? And are these people who are purchasing for a group of kids or one kids? So it's going to be parents, it's going to be educators. And then within that, what are these type of parents doing? So where are they in their life? Are they digitally savvy? Who's more likely to be digitally savvy? And then, that starts to help you to get to the next phase that we're about to talk about, which is actually getting on the phone with people to clarify and refine and revise who your target audience is. So I'm really enjoying seeing some of your comments, you guys. So that's why I'm just going through it a little bit. All right. Nick says my side hustle is through social media. However, I can't keep a working device, so it's hard to build and need an audience. All right. So I guess always focus on the priority pain point at the moment, which is going to be the working device. All right. Cool. You guys are doing some really amazing things. So let's talk about actually getting on the phone with these folks. So before we do that, I want you to remember that in order to create effective marketing campaigns with convincing messaging, you have to know who you're talking to, right? So actually talking. So how you determine who your target audience is we have to move into this next phase of audience research. And I know this part is intimidating, okay? Trust me, I know that you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Oh, who am I going to find? How am I possibly going to do this, Nicaila? And the truth is, you can't skip the step. Every company that you see and buy from, they have done this step. Every successful company. All right. I remember back when I lived in New York, like early, like 2010s, I was part of this listserv. They would email us in-person focus groups that we could attend from Sony, and they would pay you to weigh in on music they were about to release. And they were constantly studying. They were constantly getting information and intel so they could take it back to their greater team and make marketing decisions. Okay, so this is something that people invest money in each and every day. And you can start out for free. You can start out for free using your network to get this information to use so that you can build a successful side hustle. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get on the phone. Okay. And in order to do that, you have to identify people in your network who are similar to your ideal client and reach out for a quick call. So for you, for example, Jackie, I know you know parents. It's going to be starting to talk to people who you think could imagine getting what you're developing for their children. Or if you're not ready to do the phone call and you have started to build a small audience on social media, you can poll your audience. You can start to tip your toe into the waters by doing Instagram story polls, or actually put a post on your feed, whether that's an image or a reel, and ask people to weigh in the comments to start to put your feelers out. Again, this is not statistically significant, but it does start to inform, you, because the people who are following you bear some resemblance to your target audience. Or you can send a survey to your email list. Now, even if you don't have a formal email list, again, this is when you can start to tap into who you know. If you have an email service provider, if you have a email address, you have email people, there are people in your contact list, and you don't want to spam people, of course, but you want to identify those who may be open to hearing from you, to ask them a few questions about something that you're working on. So similar to what we did yesterday with the poll to friends, you might want to tap back into those people. And for me, I found that getting on the phone was just the easiest way to jump into this, because if you send out a survey, again, answers can be so varied in terms of figuring out who actually matches with your target audience, because when you're starting with your network, obviously everyone is not going to be a reflection of your actual audience, but you're starting with the people who most resemble this, so you can get closer and closer to narrowing down your ideal client. Alexis says, but what about when no one responds to your polls? Well, that's why I like to start with the phone, because then you know for sure that you're setting up a call with someone. You know for sure that you are going to get on the phone with someone. Whereas with a poll or a post on social media, sometimes people get shy to have their opinion out there on a comment for forevermore. And if they don't see anyone else respond, then they also don't respond. It could be a lot of that going on as well. So if no one responds to one method, try another. That's why I'm giving you different methods. Okay. Jasmine says she'll respond. So, again, you can also identify who you want to hear from. In your caption, you can say calling all, and then share a little bit of who you're looking to hear from, not the whole, Black women aged 38 to 35 who are doing this and that. Not like that, but a broad overall calling all moms. And then as people start to respond, make note of who is aligning with who you think your target audience is and what their responses are. So once on the phone, if you choose to go the phone route, you're going to make note of people's answers. Okay. Make note of the key themes that come across, and then use this to write your ideal client profile. The key to this particular exercise is, again, you have to get on the phone with people who match as closely with your ideal client as possible, so that you can clarify, refine, and revise your ideal client. So before starting my side hustle, which was my podcast, Side Hustle Pro, I got on the phone with 10 women who I felt would be prime potential listeners for my podcast. I knew they were side hustlers. They were Black women side hustlers in the age group of Janelle, who I thought would be the age group of people listening. So again, I'm telling you, I had assumptions, and I got on the phone to see if those assumptions were true and to see what gaps that I had in my assumptions. So got on the phone with these women, and I talked to them about what they're currently doing, why they're side hustling, where they get their inspiration, who do they follow online? Do they listen to podcasts? If so, which podcasts? Do they listen to business and entrepreneurial podcasts? Which podcasts? What do they like about that? What don't they like? What do they wish these podcasts talked about? And so all of those things were discussed. Let me see if there are any comments coming in. Is there a particular number we should aim for to get a good sample size? So as far as with the calls, I suggest doing at least 10 calls. So with 10 calls, you can, sorry, I'm a little stuffy. I think my baby gave me a little daycare bugs, but with the calls, by the time you get to the 10th call, you have truly started to firm up your vision, your idea, and you try to, what's it called? Try to eliminate people who are not really who you're looking for before you get on the phone. So that will really make sure that your calls are fruitful, but at least 10 calls. And then if you're doing emails or posts on social media, then those, the more, the better. But again, this is not for the for the purpose of a statistically significant exercise. This is for the purpose of having qualitative information that helps you to clarify, refine, and revise this ideal client profile. Okay, so you are welcome. And Jasmine says, how would we do this with B2B? Oh, I love that you asked that. So if you're thinking of selling something to B2B, you absolutely need to find someone in there to get a little intel. So, I've had a podcast, sidehustlepro podcast guest who talked about one time she just walked into, I believe it was Sam's Club, or it might have been Whole Foods, and she talked to the guy who was stocking stuff on the shelves. And from there, she was able to ask some questions and get some intel about a little bit more about who manages the buy-in process, and get a little more information about what they're looking for in companies that they're looking to bring into Whole Foods for a test. And then ultimately, how to move past the test phase. Like, what do you need to prove to them when they give you a little sample display for a few days? What do you need to do to then actually get into the store? So yeah, you absolutely need to do this exercise. And it's going to start by maybe walking into the business or calling up the business that you're looking to sell to. And don't get intimidated. So this goes back to yesterday, what we were talking about. We talked about the whole imposter syndrome thing and how it's okay to recognize a feeling without claiming it deeply as a trait, for example, right? So, okay, you're going to feel nervous, you're going to feel intimidated, and then you're going to do it. And you're going to feel good about yourself for doing it. So acknowledge that those feelings are going to come. We already know it. Listen, I get nervous every single time I speak. I don't know what it is. I've spoken so many times now. I know I'm going to get nervous. I know I'm going to get butterflies in my stomach that make me feel like I want to throw up, and I'm going to get through it, and it's going to be great. And I'm going to be glad I did it. All right. So, all right, let's do a check-in, guys. So I want to know, have any of you ever spoken to your ideal client? Let me know in the chat. Let me know how it's gone. And, if we have a little extra time, I might do a sample little VIP so more of you can see the value of that and actually allow us to chat a little bit. Okay. So let's see. All right. So for those of you who it's gone well, I'd love to know a little bit more about how did you make the most of it? And then I want to repeat this one again. So you guys, another common question or concern that I get is people thinking that if they narrow down who it is they're talking to, that then they're excluding others and they're being exclusive, they're missing out on money, or they're missing out on opportunity. And that's not the case at all. So remember, right? A target audience is still a group. It's still a group of consumers, okay, within a predefined target market. So that means of all the people out there who take, for example, rideshare companies, right? Of all the people in the world who want a ride, who want to be able to hail a taxi or a ride via their mobile phone, okay? So that's the predefined target market. A target audience is a group of consumers within that. So Uber has a target audience, Lyft has a target audience. Sometimes they even overlap, but they know, okay, I'm looking for the people who, and sometimes it's what all the things that they don't like about this other company. And then they're going to identify, who are the best recipients of their particular marketing message. So that's one example. And let me know if you guys want me to keep giving you examples, but you just always have to say, okay, what's the larger concern here? Okay. People who like cookies. Okay. That is a huge, huge market, right? And every day we see new cookie companies sprouting up. So what is this target audience within this larger group? What are they looking for? A cookie that's vegan, a cookie that is less carbs, a cookie that's less sugar, right? So we start there. And then with the ideal client, we get more granular. Like I'm looking for the mom who is concerned about food allergens, right? You get people like the woman who, another Side Hustle Pro guest, who created a line of gluten-free cookies because her kid had such a bad allergic reaction to cookies one day. So now she has to go out there and get on the phone with other moms who have kids with food allergies. And so in order to do that, she might start with her network, people she's met along the way, whether it was at the doctor's office or what have you, maybe even the pediatrician, and the pediatrician can point her to other moms. So you're going to start there to start to reach your people. So VIP, by the way, we meet 11 to 12, but I may be switching that around a little bit. We might just have to do a deep dive on one of the days. I am learning that some of you guys have some time block issues with that. So it is 11 to 12 currently. Amber says it's hard to convince other people that finances are fun. Wait, Amber, that means we're not talking to the right people though. If you want the people who think finances are fun or want to make money, save money, what have you, there's a lane for that. So now we have to find out how you can get, really targeted in that lane and how you can make sure you're reaching those people. Zoom user. I can't see your name, but it says, I've made a sample of my product years ago and gave it out to about 10 girls. They loved it and still use it or put it on display. That's awesome. So is this a product that you kept making and giving to other people? Did you start to write down commonalities that you found in the people who you gave it to, and how you can kind of find that person elsewhere? So that's another key about identifying your ideal client. So if I know that my listener has these traits, it's easier for me to then go and find her in other cities. It's easier for me to find her online when I'm writing posts. I know what hashtags to include, or if I'm boosting that post on social media or just putting an ad behind it on social media, I know what to put in to target that ad so that it will reach more people like that person. So that's the other reason why narrowing down and finding out who your target and then your ideal client is so important. Reagan wants to know, if you have a product that applies to everyone with a specific condition, is it productive to do a poll? So Reagan, I would love to know what product this is, because 9 times out of 10, it might not apply to everyone with a specific condition, or there's something about your messaging that can hone in on something that it just may be missing. So for example, moms who, if your kids have eczema, right, you're going to get millions of suggestions about what to use. And so someone might say, oh, this is a product, this lotion that treats eczema is a product for everyone with this condition, but it's actually not, because everyone's condition and everyone's skin is still different. And so what might work for this person actually doesn't work for your kid. And so you're trying to hone in on, you're listening out, you're paying attention to the characteristics. Okay, this one is non-occlusive, and this one, it has squalene, or this one is more water-based. And so there's certain keywords that you'll know to put into the description, because hey, I'm trying to reach the person who's tried X for this condition and who's tried Y for this condition and is just still bumping into a wall. All right, so just to wrap up a little bit, when you have a custom person in mind, you can create custom solutions. So this is what we want at the end of the day. When we are determining who our target audience is, we're trying to come up with custom solutions, because that's what sells. When you're building anything, whether it's a product or service, content or physical product, it needs to be customized to your audience. That's how you develop a lane, and that's how you win. You win in your lane, okay? You cannot speak to everyone. You don't win when you try to speak to everyone, because everyone just says, oh, okay, that was cool. I might tune into a one-off episode, but I don't really know what lane they're in. I don't really know if it's for me. It's just something that I'll sample every now and again. But when you hone in and say specifically, this is what our product, service, podcast is for, then you help people to opt in to your product, service, content. So day 2 homework is going to be to take the following actions. All right. So you're going to write down the key demographic information about your target audience. And then from there, you'll use that to create a sample profile of your ideal client. Remember, keyword here is fictional. This is fiction, right? So give yourself that liberty to write out as much as you think about your ideal client. And then you're going to start the outreach. So I don't expect you to do this overnight. Like, you don't have to have 10 calls tonight, but start the outreach. Reach out to your network via phone, social media, or email to arrange your ideal client clarification calls. So via phone, I just mean you can start texting people. You can even start just looking through your phone and making a list of people. Sometimes you even forget who's in your phone. You might not have spoken to them in a while, so remind them who you are. Say, hey, for me, it was like, hey, I am, at that point, I already had a blog. So I was like, hey, I'm thinking of transitioning my blog and the interviews that I've done on the blog into a podcast. And it's going to be about side hustling. And I thought about you because obviously you're side hustling. And I would love to get on the phone with you for like 10 minutes, emphasize the time, okay? Make them realize that this is not even 30 minutes. I'm not trying to put a chunk of time on your calendar. I'd love to get on the phone with you for 10, 15 minutes and ask you a few questions because I'm trying to clarify who would listen to this. For you, it might be, I'm trying to clarify who would buy this, what they need, and how I can make the best product or service possible. All right. So Lion Flood says, at the end, is it possible to give some of us the Libsyn code? I'm planning to switch from Anchor to Libsyn. I love how many podcasters are in the building. Like, I'm talking about side hustling and y'all are like, but back to podcasting. But yes, my Libsyn code is Hustle Pro, you guys. So yes, and we are going to do a breakout session for podcasting, not today, but either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So let me know in the chat what day would work for you guys. It would probably be 1 to 2, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. Jasmine says, I tend to overthink, like I haven't called this person in a minute and now I'm asking them to answer questions specifically to benefit me. Yep, a lot of you guys are starting to overthink, right? Don't reach out to those people then. Start with the people closest to you. All right. Even if they seem like they would be an ideal person, just start really thinking of who do I know? Who is closest to me, or who would be most open to this, even if we haven't spoken in a little bit, and then go with that. All right. We're getting all sorts of different days in the chat. Look at that. Oh man. Yes. So I'll keep you guys posted. All right. On the breakout session. Yes, I'll absolutely record it because guaranteed someone's not going to be able to make it. So I'll absolutely record the breakout podcast session. So thank you guys for joining here. And so now I'm going to stop sharing for a bit and do something unprecedented, which is have some open time for us to talk a little bit more about this concept, because I left open time specifically because I do know that this is the part where a lot of people stop. And this is day 2. We can't stop on day 2. All right. We cannot stop at this intimidation and not find out who our target audience is and who our ideal client is. Because if we do that, how can we have a side hustle, right? So you guys, if you want to unmute yourself and ask for clarification on anything right now, or ask for clarification in the chat, go right ahead. I'm going to grab a sip of my coffee and you guys let me know what your questions are. Rainy? And yes, guys. Oh, I see Lion Flood. Are you talking? Oh, okay. I was like, I see your lips moving. So why don't we do this? Go ahead and raise your hand. If you go to the reactions on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Okay, I see Michelle already. All right, great. That's very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to lower hand, and Michelle, you can go right ahead. I'm going to unmute you. Oh, oops, I keep. All right, there you go.
Okay. Hi, Nicaila.
Hi.
So I have been doing a podcast for a little while, and I think I'm still having issues connecting with my audience. And it seems as if I really haven't thought. I know loosely who they are, but I don't think I've put enough thought into who they are and what they need to make sure that the content is appealing to them.
Yep.
And that's why I have been having trouble sort of connecting. So I think it would be good. Like, I'm the one who's been emailing you about the VIP and the timing.
Yes.
So
Yeah, no.
when you do the podcast episode, please pick a Thursday. I'm available that day.
I will try. I think I interview people on Thursday, so that's the tricky part. But I'm gonna try. So what is your podcast called? Your question is.
So my podcast is called Where's the Funding? WTF. And I talk about access to funding, particularly for underrepresented founders. But I just think that I just haven't been doing enough. You know, naively, when I started, I thought that I start a podcast and they will come. And was, realized that that's really not how it works. I am not someone who really likes to be in front of the camera. I'm an introvert by nature, but podcasting works for me because it's an opportunity to have one-on-one conversations, which is where I flourish.
Yep.
And so I'm comfortable with that. Now I have to be on video, right? So this is where I struggle with the alternate content other than what I'm pulling from the podcast itself, because that's not enough to keep things going. I was speaking to a marketing person I wanted to help me this morning. He's like, well, your content is boring. And I'm like, well, thank you. Thank you for your honesty. But honesty is good, right? Right. Gotta hear it. Yeah. And then it's like, well, you need to make some videos, breaking. And I'm like, I know I need to do those things, but it's like, when do I find the time to do that? This is my lunch hour that I'm carving out for this because I wanted to do it. I'm like, I want to do VIP, but I can't take 2 hours right. To do this, that's just being too presumptuous. And so I'm like, when do I find time to do all of this? Because this thing becomes very consuming. You don't realize that when you're getting into it. So my question to you is, how do you manage all of these things? I think at this point, you probably have a team helping you, because also, folks, people who look like they're crushing it, they're not crushing it alone. They all have a team behind them helping them to do this. So how do you create content? Okay. Outside of what you're pulling from the podcast itself?
Got it. So thank you, first of all, for coming and spending your lunch hour with me. So a couple of things. As far as the how, so obviously I started the podcast and I was doing it myself for the first, I would say 9 months. My producer, who I still use to this day, reached out to me with a cold email, said, hey, I'm getting started with editing. I'll give you a free show, so you can see my services, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, because I was like, I just need this right now. And my team is still pretty lean. It's 3 people, all contractors at the moment. And, that will shift in the near future. But for now, that's just what works for me. So when you're starting out, first of all, you've got to identify what are your core key tasks that you need to do every single week to do this podcast, and then break it down into days. All right, when you were like Thursday, I'm like, Thursdays I record. Thursdays are the only day that I interview people. So that's my core task. And I'm like, I don't like having to jump around and think of, oh, do I have an interview today? I don't like the possibility that I could forget. So I've always had days for my interviews. It used to be Monday and Tuesday after work when I was side hustling. So have days for that, have days for editing, and then have a day for marketing. It might be on the weekend, Saturdays from 8 to 9, or 12 to 1. You strictly focus, you think about, all right, what episodes do I have coming out? And, let me type up 3 quick captions and do 3 quick posts to support that. And that'll be your marketing day. So you don't have to be stressed about that throughout the week as you're working. So that's how you need to balance when you are side hustling, juggling the podcast with your full-time job. And then also, you don't need to do all the things like this marketer who's telling you to make videos. So nowadays we're in this space with social media where everyone feels like their podcast needs to have videos. And it's not true, because podcasts, at the end of the day, its core form is listenership, right? It's like telling a radio person, like, oh, you need to make sure you have videos for all your radio content. Like, no, they know who their market is. Their market are people who are listening on the radio, streaming, whether they're driving or, they're pulling it up on their AirPod and phone. Like, that's their core person, right? If they have video content that does well on social, that is a bonus. But if their core content is not doing well, that's a problem. And I know this as someone who, was working at NPR while I was doing my own podcast. The core lifeline of NPR is the radio. And so all this other stuff is great, but you can't forget what your core audience needs. So if you're struggling with the content right now and you have to choose one thing to focus on the audio, focus on making sure that quality is good and that consistency is there. So you're putting out an episode at the cadence that works for you, whether that's every week or every 2 weeks. And you are creating social posts to push people to listen, and also to get them on your email list so you can remind them that way as well. And that's all I would focus on. I would make that content as engaging as possible. The video stuff is another layer that I only suggest. That is the advanced layer. All right. And as a matter of fact, I'm thinking of dividing podcast moguls, into like beginner to whatchamacallit, and then advanced, because the video stuff is in the advanced. All right, Jasmine, Dr. Jackie seems to have popped off. So Jasmine, you're up next.
Okay, I also put it in the chat.
Okay.
So listening to you today, I really do feel like I'm thinking at least more that this is my target audience. It was much more broad when we started this session.
Yeah.
But I'm really not comfortable. I think that these young Black males that are at risk or even currently or recently incarcerated would really be the best to receive my message and my service.
And what's your message? And then what's your question?
It's job development and career readiness, professional development course on a curriculum that I've created.
Okay.
So my question is, like, I'm very uncomfortable with cops and law enforcement and being in their presence in general. But I'm realizing that a lot of this is just my own fears and bias. So how can I still engage that audience and like not worry about the intimidation, like I said, the intimidation factor and just everything that comes with those institutions? The message they send to those young Black males in general is kind of conflicting.
Okay. Wow, that's very understandable. And first of all, I commend you for the work that you're doing. And so are you in practice right now? Are you doing this work?
I haven't done it in about 2 years. I just recently lost a full-time job. So I'm now revisiting this curriculum and considering marketing it for myself.
Okay. And when you did do that work, so from my understanding is you provide this service, this training, and then you marketed these services through at-risk programs that were usually housed within institutions led by law enforcement.
They were actually, when I created the curriculum, I was in a homeless shelter.
Okay.
But again, in thinking about the array of students that I had, again, the most successful were those within that age range that had already been through some type of conflict with law enforcement. And those were the ones that rose to the top in my class.
Okay. Got it. So it seems to me that one, you should definitely start again, right? Like there's no harm in starting again, and perhaps see if you can engage, even if they've had interactions with law enforcement, you can still engage them in other places, whether that's, where else are you finding them? So it could be through the shelters, like you said. It could be through another at-risk program that you come in and say, hey, I'm going to do the curriculum in this aspect. Like you guys just do overall, like, don't do this, don't do that. But hey, I want to do the professional development piece. Can I come in on Thursdays? Can this be the day that they do this? And I'll be the person, because I imagine, again, this is a big assumption, but I imagine that if you're trying to treat this population of at-risk youth and someone says, hey, I have a program already built that I can offer you, like, I imagine that that would be helpful. It reminds me of Tiffany Aliche Budgetnista, who put together a financial readiness and financial learning and budgeting curriculum that she would shop, and she worked in partnership with organizations to deliver this. So she would get contracts from the organizations to deliver it. So even if they have put out like, hey, we provide this and this and that, they don't always have the staff for it, right? They don't always have someone on staff who has this. So if you have a ready-made solution for them, you can start to shop that around to the organization, so you have less interaction with that side of what they're going through.
Got it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, you guys, this was really, really great. It looks like a lot more of you would love to be in VIP, but the timing is a little bit tricky for you guys. So I will revisit that next time. As for this time, I'm still trying to, I don't know if we'll be able to do that for this time. However, I definitely am going to prioritize doing the podcast breakout session. So I'll give you guys an update on that via email later. And for now, I want to remind you guys that I'll be sending out the replay, which will be, expiring in 24 hours the next day. And then also the homework. And remember, with the homework, I'm not expecting you to do all these 10 calls, but to get started, Jackie's posted, she just put a poll on Instagram, check mark, boom. All right. So just keep on doing, just keep moving forward so that you can start to see the results after this challenge is done. All right. Thank you again for joining, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow, same time, same place.